So, Matt, go ahead and read us in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club.
Couple pieces of news from my end. One is that we went to New York City to visit my daughter this past weekend, and it was an exhausting trip, but it was great to see her, and we all went out to see the show Liberation, which just moved onto Broadway, and it was very well done. Highly recommended. My other piece of news is that my trivia team's reign of terror has ended. We did not place this week. We came in fourth, which meant we won no free beer. So we might take a break from this point on. Who knows? But it was fun while it lasted. So how about you, Matt?
Yes. So my own bar trivia recently moved. We were at a bar called Bob's Pizza, and now we've moved to a bar called Prairie Moon. It's still here in Evanston, even closer to Northwestern and even closer to parking, and it's worked out really well. I like the people there a lot. They were getting to know me last night. We hadn't adequately warned them that we give away shots for every fourth question, and they're like, what shots should we give away? Should we give away Jameson? And I said, oh no, a well drink. whatever you want to give away, whatever you want to get rid of, give them that. And then they're like, is there anything else we need to know? Do you have like chug-offs or something? And I said, well, we used to have chug-offs, and then we found out they were illegal, so we stopped. The bar we used to be at was like, I think we got to stop doing the chug-offs because I just got my license renewed, and they made it very clear we're not allowed to do chug-offs. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll stop doing them.
Yeah, that's wise. So
yeah, it's probably for the best.
Are they paying for the shots that you're giving away?
Yes. So they have to give away shots. So that's why I said, just give away whatever you want to give away.
Yeah, but our bar trivia just gives away pretzels and beer cheese.
Well, you're not as nice as we are.
I guess not. All right, so let's go ahead and jump on into this here. Do you want to take Fantastic Four, or do you want me to?
Yes. Once again, we're breaking up Months of Marvel Comics into 3 episodes now because there are so many Marvel books Marvel is publishing every month. They have broken up all of their 2-in-1 books into individual books. So we are going to do the second batch of comics from June 1968. So let's go and do Fantastic Four number 75. What profiteth a man to flee his fate? For he shall surely find worlds within worlds. So is this actually from the Bible, or is this faux Bible?
I think it's faux Bible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I think of that as like, what profit a man to gain the world if he loses his soul, or something to that effect.
But it's not profit, it's profiteth.
Yes. He's got a lisp.
Sounds made up. So let's go ahead and jump into this comic. So we are in the middle of a storyline where Galactus is going to return. He wants Silver Surfer back as his herald, and he wants to go ahead and break his promise and eat Earth. Sue is still very pregnant, being taken care of by Crystal. Reed has rejoined Johnny and Ben to go deal with this issue. I'm glad that Johnny is actually wearing his Fantastic Four costume now. He's recommitted to the team. But they have decided that if they're going to fight Galactus when he comes to Earth, they want to be on an island outside New York. What island are they on? Is this Governor's Island? Is this Roosevelt Island? They're on some...
I hope it's not Roosevelt Island. That one's pretty well populated.
Begins with Ben saying, if you ask me, old Stretcho lost his marbles, making us hang around this nutty island just so no crowds will get hurt when we tangle with Galactus again. So they seem to be on some little undiscovered island off the coast of Manhattan. They're going ahead and hanging out here. They see that Galactus is coming back. We then have what is really a bunch of time killing here, where Galactus goes ahead and sends doppelgangers of the 3 of them to fight them. They fight for several pages. They then get to a storyline that John Byrne shamelessly steals for his first issue as writer-artist of Fantastic Four later on in issue 232, where they fight their own doppelgangers for a while, and then they realize the only way to defeat them is to fight each other's doppelgangers, which they can easily defeat. But then Galactus is like, okay, that didn't work. I'll send a giant asteroid to go crush Manhattan. And Reed, Ben, and Johnny are like, okay, you win, Galactus. We'll go find Silver Surfer for you. We didn't realize you could crush us with a giant rock. And Galactus is like, great. And they're like, well, we think the Silver Surfer fled to the microverse. Now, there's an interesting thing here. Johnny knows that Silver Surfer has fled to the microverse, and Reed asks him, now think, Johnny, think. When you last saw the Silver Surfer, where was he? And Johnny says, right here in the lab. You know that. He says, that's not what I want. Pinpoint it, man. The exact spot. And he says, I'm not sure. I can't remember. You must remember. Come on, Junior, you can do it. This has always been my question. When you shrink down and go to the microverse, if you shrink down anywhere on Earth, will it send you to the same microverse? Or does every single atom have its own microverse? So that, if we try to revisiting the same microverse we visited before, we would have to find the exact same atom to shrink down into. They seem to be implying that that's the case, that if they're going to try to find the Silver Surfer, they have to find the exact spot, the exact atom that he shrunk down into. It's a little unclear. So then they've got their little shrinky ship, and they're going to go into it. I summed up this issue very quickly. There was more stuff going on. We visited Silver Surfer in the microverse for a little while. Everything looks absolutely gorgeous here with the Senate Kirby arts. The doppelgangers look absolutely gorgeous that they're fighting. We do visit Sue and Crystal for a while, but I've quickly summed up this issue. What did you think of this issue, Steve?
I thought it was pretty good, but there really wasn't much there. You know what I mean?
No.
Because I've started to try to get in the habit of going back and looking at these things a second time before we start recording so I can get through things a little bit more succinctly. Going back to this one, I was like, what did happen in this issue? I'm not quite sure I remember. I do like how the Reed doppelganger uses his powers in a more menacing way, like creating spiked fists and stuff like that to go ahead and punch with.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's a neat idea. And, the doppelganger thing looks a little bit not fully formed, looks somewhat like the thing of the early days, although not quite as horrifically ugly as that version of the thing was. I did notice that when we see Galactus rhapsodizing about how he must not starve to death, and we have the full body splash page of him, we're starting to get a little more of that Kirby not caring too much about what actual anatomy looks like. Yeah. On that page 4, Galactus's left knee on our bottom right-hand corner. I mean, I believe, that's a lumpy, bumpy looking knee.
That is.
It doesn't really look like a knee. So now, granted, you could always just say he's an alien, but of course everything else about him looks like he's human. So
yeah, we got a gorgeous splash on page 4 of sort of an upskirt shot of Galactus as we're sort of trying to peek under his miniskirt just a little bit here as he is towering over us. But thankfully, we see nothing.
He is not wearing pants, but he is wearing a shirt.
Yes.
His sleeves are covered, but his legs aren't. He just wants to show off that he thinks he wants to show off that he doesn't skip leg day, but instead we're just noticing the cottage cheese knees.
Yes, nothing to brag about, Galactus.
Yes. Sorry, I might end up editing out cottage cheese knees. That just seems unnecessary. Not because I'm going to offend Galactus, but because yes.
If you were listening out there and you have cottage cheese knees, I want you to know that we love you, we support you, and we don't mean to disparage you in any way.
Yes. Anyway, that's my thoughts about this. I wish there had been a little bit more to the story, but there's at least a lot of fun visuals along the way.
No, this is definitely a time killer story. The whole doppelganger story is just time killing, but I would much rather kill time in a big Galactus story than I would in a Mad Thinker story.
Well, a Mad Thinker story is almost by definition time killing.
Yes. Yeah, except for he would know the precise amount of time he was killing.
Yes, and he would be very excited to tell you all about it, too.
Yes, as I say in my notes, a bit of a time-killing issue. We could have gotten here by the end of last issue, but Kirby Sinnott goodness. So, yes, lots of Kirby Sinnott goodness, which is all I need.
All right, so let's move on then to Incredible Hulk number 104. Look out, strong man. Here comes the Rhino. And on the cover, we see a possibly unconscious, but certainly not doing that well Hulk in the far foreground, while the Rhino is running at him at full tilt. And we can see in the background that they are at an airport of some sort. The title inside the issue is different than what's on the cover. Ring Around the Rhino.
Hmm.
And we see a close-up of a Daily Bugle front page saying, Hulk captured, held prisoner at Sing Sing. Stan Lee editor, Gary Friedrich scripter, Maurice Severin artist, Frank Giacoia inker, Sam Rosen letterer, all questioned. So it's as though that's part of the subhead
Yes.
there.
I absolutely love the splash page. I love seeing Severin and Giacoia working in black and white with their two photos here of the Hulk and Bruce Banner being arrested. Just the shadows and light are just absolutely gorgeous on the splash page. I love it.
And then down at the bottom right-hand corner, there's actually a bit of the article written in a handwritten Times New Roman, which is kind of interesting. Following a battle yesterday with the space parasite, the Hulk was captured shortly after he had once again changed into his alter ego, gamma scientist Bruce Banner. He is being held under sedition at under
Sedation.
sedation. He is being held under sedation for sedition. He's being held under sedation at Sing Sing prison. Yeah, they really put some thought and some time and some care into this
Oh,
splash
yeah.
page. Now, one of the things about the Rhino being in here, when I was young, always associated the Rhino as a Hulk villain. And that's because there was an old Hulk reprint comic that we had at one point where he fought the Rhino.
Yeah.
From sometime later in the 70s. So I just always was like, oh yeah, the Rhino is a Hulk villain. And it seems to make sense. They're both like big, bulky bruisers, and
Yep.
why not? Anyway, this is where that begins.
Well, it's interesting. I think of this as sort of being an Acts of Vengeance issue. There was a crossover in the late 80s, or maybe it was early 90s, called Acts of Vengeance, which was just all the heroes fighting other heroes' villains that they never fought before. And I always liked Acts of Vengeance issues. I always like issues where it's like, wait just a second, the Hulk fighting the Rhino, the Spider-Man villain? I think that frequently you can get good comics out of that.
Yeah. All right. So Bruce Banner is under sedation at Sing Sing. And is this military police that are coming in? Yeah, I guess because Sing Sing is not a military facility, but in comes Talbot and others to question him. Bruce Banner's like, you know what? I think I finally figured out how to go ahead and cure me of my Hulkism forever. You got to let me out. You got to let me into my lab. And they're like, dude, we are not doing that. And so they go ahead and they knock him out once again. We then see the Rhino is being repowered up. And we get a little bit of a flashback to his origin, which we saw a bit of in Spider-Man. He was powered up by these couple of sort of freelance spies. Then he turned on them. But they ended up coming back to him. And they're like, yeah, I know you turned on us last time, but we still think that you're of value to us. So we'll keep on paying you more money if we can turn you back into the Rhino. So he's like, sure. Now, this time it's not bonded to his skin like it was last time. It's a thing that he can take off. Also, they mention here that it says the threads with which the costume was woven are treated to complement the strength given to you by gamma ray bombardments.
Yes.
So it's unclear whether that's a new development or whether gamma ray bombardments were part of what they did to him when he first became the Rhino. But that's the first time it's been mentioned, certainly.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's turned back into the Rhino. So we're going to have a fight in a little bit. Bruce Banner is still under sedation, and Betty Ross is begging to be able to go along with him as he's being delivered to wherever he's going to. I forget exactly what they're doing. Are they going to euthanize him? I forget where they're taking him right now. Anyway, one way or the other.
Let me point out, I absolutely love on page 5 when they're showing the Rhino films of the Hulk, and the Rhino gets so angry he tries to destroy the projector screen that they're projecting onto. And while he's doing that, you can see the image being projected onto his back as he's tearing up the screen. I think that's just gorgeous. That's just brilliant work by Severin and Giacoia to actually show the image being projected on his back while he's tearing up the screen. There will be a moment specifically later today in the Iron Man issue where that does not happen. And I think they do a great job with that on page 5.
Cool. So Rick Jones, meanwhile, is watching all of this going on TV about Bruce Banner being shipped out of Sing Sing. And he's like, I don't know why, but I feel I have to be there. You know, even though I know this is probably the right thing and I know that he's probably not going to forgive me, I've still got to go see this thing through. So he's going to go ahead and head down there. The Rhino ends up wrecking basically the armored car that has Bruce Banner tied up in the back of it. And he bursts into it while a big is it called a Huey? What's those like heavy lift helicopters that are Vietnam era? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The two
Yeah.
different propellers.
Yeah. I can't remember what they were called. Yeah. Huey sounds about right, but maybe a little wrong. I'm not sure.
Anyway, one of those things. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, those things.
So it's coming down to collect Banner. The Rhino is able to get Banner onto the helicopter, at which point they chloroform Banner, who's starting to wake up. But they are not able to chloroform him fast enough, and he becomes the Hulk. But he's the Hulk kind of doped out on chloroform. Right, because which is an interesting thing to have happen. A little bit of a weird Marvel method sort of thing on page 11, where the Hulk, having just turned into the Hulk, is falling backwards out of the helicopter, and then in the next panel, he's holding onto the helicopter by his left hand, and Gary Friedrich feels the need to say, "Must hang on with my leg muscles," and then, Hulk did perfect flip and grabbed hold with his hand. Now I can rescue the girl. It's, one of those things where the scripter doesn't think it's clear enough in the art what's going on, and so they have to narrate what's happening. So the Hulk is able to wreck the helicopter and then cushion its fall with his own body, which I don't quite buy, but okay, I'll allow it, I guess. The Hulk is still kind of dopey from the chloroform, so when the Rhino attacks him, the Rhino has a little bit more chance against him than he normally would. The Hulk at one point sees Betty and is like, oh, okay, Betty needs to be protected from this. So he jumps up to the top of some sort of a tower and leaves her there. She's thinking about how, like, she's terrified, but she knows she has nothing to fear from him. But Hulk, once he's got Betty put away safe, comes back to the fight. The sequence of panels that the last panel on page 14 and the first panel on page 15, I absolutely love. So... Yes. The Hulk grabs onto the Rhino's horn with his left hand in the end of page 14. And then on page 15, you see that he has swung him around and smashed his face into the tarmac. Which, good thing he had those gamma ray bombardments, because his face is the one part of himself that is not protected.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would have a face anymore if he didn't have some other invulnerability as well. So they continue fighting. There's a big explosion at one point of a fuel truck. The Hulk decides that he has to rescue the Rhino and not let him die in the inferno. The Rhino is paying him back by wanting to still try to mess him up. And the Rhino is thinking, let's see, I'm hurt too bad to live anyway. The least I can do is die a winner. Just enough strength for one last charge. So he thinks he's injured enough that he's not going to make it here. In the end, he does pass out. Theoretically, he's dead. We know that he comes back at some point in the future. The other folks have rescued Betty from the top of this tower, but then the Hulk grabs her back and takes her away, even though she is protesting. And even though he had said at one point, I'll get the girl one way or the other, unless I hear her say that she hates Hulk. And she's saying, please don't do this. I don't want you to do this. I want you to leave me here. No, please don't grab me. But she doesn't say the magic words, I hate the Hulk. And so he is still abducting her.
Yes. As I say in my notes, Hulk kidnaps Betty to protect her, even though she's begging him not to. Bad ally, Hulk.
That's right. So next, you'll call it the most magnificent Marvel mind explosion yet. But we just call it the coming of the missing link. So
yes.
That's our next issue. I think I've said everything I need to say about this issue. What are your thoughts?
So let's say this whole issue begins because Rhino has gotten out of prison. He has seemingly served his sentence. Now, as we saw, he was committing treason. He was attacking the military. He was engaged in, acts that generally bring about the death penalty, but he has gotten out of prison. It's unclear if he has served his sentence or if he had a really good lawyer who got him sprung on a technicality. I guess that would probably make more sense. But as I say in my notes, I know that this was before mass incarceration, but this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit like, seriously? Already?
So I end by going, this is a fun issue. The Rhino Hulk combination is a good combo, and it's got nice art. So I really like the Severin Giacoya art in this issue. There were some other issues where it seemed like they weren't working together as well, but now they've really learned to work together well.
I completely agree. The art in this issue is really quite good. The art and the storytelling are generally quite good.
Yeah, even when Friedrich feels like he has to explain that the Hulk flipped himself over, I think that art is totally clear. I don't have a problem at all with him falling out of the helicopter right there.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was necessary on Friedrich's part at all. I also really love the texturing on the Rhino's suit.
Yes.
It's almost like I can feel it. It's really well done.
And Severin does a much better job with shoes than Cullen does, which you would, I guess, expect. But the shoes are well done in this issue as opposed to the terrible Cullen shoes we were talking about in our previous episode.
So why don't we move along and you can tell me about Iron Man.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Iron Man number 2. So this is a really interesting comic because we have really interesting art. This book has been penciled by Gene Colan for several years, and the last couple of issues were inked by old EC artist Johnny Craig, and I thought he was doing a nice job. Well, now Colan is gone, and will be gone, I think, for the, from now on. And Johnny Craig has bumped up from just being inker to being penciler and inker. We have this old EC style art here in Iron Man, and I like it a lot. The Invincible Iron Man, the Day of the Demolisher. I like the cover a lot, although the Demolisher robot that is attacking the Iron Man and this girl on the cover is a fairly generic looking robot. I don't necessarily love Craig's character designs, but I really like the art. We begin the issue, another mammoth Marvel monument from Stan Lee editor, Archie Goodwin writer, Johnny Craig artist, which still would seem a trifle flat without the lettering of L.P. Gregory. So Craig both penciling and inking here and doing a good job. Once again, we have villains watching color film strips of the hero. However, this time, Craig does not do what Severin does and does not show, when they block the screen, the image being projected onto their backs. But we have this crazy guy named Drexel Cord and his daughter Janice. And Drexel Cord is obsessed with both Tony Stark and Iron Man. He's very, very upset with them. He feels like he should have the credit and acclaim and success that Tony Stark has had, which is something we get quite a lot of in this book. His daughter is trying to calm him down. It's interesting. She's wearing sort of a brown dress, which is, feels like would be a pretty new thing in 1968 instead of sort of the colors of the 60s we've had before now. We're starting to move into the colors of the 70s. He reveals that he's created a giant robot called the Demolisher. The Demolisher looks fine. It's not going to set the world on fire, but it's, it might actually set the world on fire, but it's not the most original creation. So then he goes ahead and sends the robot flying off after Tony Stark and Iron Man. I guess, does he know Tony Stark is Iron Man? Everybody always seems to know, but he's...
Right. Anyone who's mad at Tony Stark is also mad at Iron Man, and anyone who's mad at Iron Man is also mad at Tony Stark, whether or not they realize why.
And if they want to get to Iron Man, they know they can attack Tony Stark, and if they want to get to Tony Stark, they know they can attack Iron Man. So everybody essentially knows it. We get a really nice sequence on page 5, 6, and 7, where it's really clear that Tony Stark is on the deck of the ship. The really nice panel 3 on page 5, looking up from the ship as the Demolisher is flying towards them. And we see Tony and his babes on the deck.
So one thing I noticed about that panel in particular when I went back and re-looked at it today, notice that there are 3 women in bikinis who all look like they're just having a fantastic time. And then there's one woman in a one-piece who looks like she's sulking. I don't know if that's something that was on purpose to be some kind of a visual gag or something, but it jumped out at me. Go on.
But then it's just very clear that Tony Stark then goes down into the hull of the ship, turns into Iron Man, flies back out to fight the Demolisher. Meanwhile, Janice has decided to go to the Stark factory where she finds Jasper Sitwell and says, let's go try to rescue Iron Man. And Jasper Sitwell is very clever here. He's like, no, let's go find your dad. He can probably still control the robot, and he's going to be a lot easier for us to stop than to go stop the robot. And she's like, oh, that is a good idea. We have a bunch more pages of Iron Man fighting the Demolisher. They're having a fun old time wailing on each other in the sky and then in the water a little bit after that. I like how on page 12, I think this is Goodwin feeling compelled to explain why Johnny Craig showed this whole thing is taking place in a castle. Why Drexel Court lives in a castle. And it's like, this is your father's laboratory? It has the appearance of a medieval castle. And she says, it is, imported stone by stone. Dad insisted upon it, despite all costs. More of his mania to outdo Tony Stark. Like, I'm not sure that's a way to compete with Tony Stark. Like, I'm going to import a castle stone by stone. And that always seems to happen in the Marvel Universe, that if you're going to have a castle in America, you've got to import it stone by stone from Europe. I think you could just probably there's nothing wrong with good old American know-how and hiring American architects to build castles. Janice and Jasper go ahead and find the dad. But then the Demolisher has brought Iron Man back as well. So now we're all here. Of course, Drexel Court then realizes that the Demolisher is going to kill everybody and can't be controlled. And he must sacrifice his own life in order to stop it. And that's what happens, and that's basically how the issue ends, although Iron Man has to help destroy the Demolisher as well. Drexel Court, of course, dies in his daughter's arms and says, you did all you could, Janice. It's my obsession to outdo Stark that led to this, and in all the madness of trying to produce a machine to equal the Iron Man, I never saw the real truth, that no skill could duplicate his most essential powers, a human heart and courage. Doing! And then the little exploding lines thing that indicates someone has died. And
like a little asterisk that doesn't meet in the middle kind of
yes.
thing. Actually, it looks like the Walmart logo these days.
Yeah. Go to Walmart, my final words.
Right. Yeah, Walmart. Poof. Right.
Yes. Next issue, my friend, my foe, the Freak. So the Freak will be back next issue. I like this issue a lot. I really like Johnny Craig's penciling and inking. It was a fairly generic, jealous of Iron Man, jealous of Tony Stark, beat him up with a robot type story. Archie Goodwin is not breaking new ground here, but I really liked this story, and I loved the storytelling on the boat. I loved all of the storytelling. What do you think of this issue, Steve?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very straightforward, no frills when it comes to the story being told. When I was going back through this to prepare in case I was summarizing this one seemed the most straightforward to be able to summarize, right?
Yes.
And I am not particularly familiar with Johnny Craig's art. In my exposure to EC, I primarily was interested in the science fiction comics and the war comics, and not as much some other stuff. And so I don't think I ran into Johnny Craig that much.
Mm-hmm. He did more of the suspense comics.
Yeah, but I'm really liking his art. It has a kind of somewhat slick look to it in a way that is that has a lot of character. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. One connection that I made that is almost certainly something I'm making up in my head is that this is a wealthy scientist and industrialist who is jealous of how much more famous Tony Stark is. And his last name is Cord. And the Ted Cord Blue Beetle comics were just being, we're in the middle of coming out from Charlton at this time. And I'm almost certainly making up a connection there, but it does sort of feel almost like, Mr. Cord is upset that he is not as well known as Mr. Stark.
Right.
And then the only other thing that I had was what you said about the castle. And I do love the drawing of the castle that's on that panel. It's really, really nicely rendered.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to more.
Yes, and Craig does a great job, even looking at the last page, in terms of the angle we're looking at Iron Man's head sort of creates different emotional things, even though the mask is, a static metal mask. Just really like the angles here. And that's always one of the hardest jobs in Iron Man, is to try to, get some emotion out of Iron Man's face, which is obviously just a fixed metal slab. Yeah, my number one complaint in this issue is that you can't see the projector on their back when they're blocking the projector. I got spoiled by Severin and Giacoya doing that.
I have to say that one's petty.
Yes, petty complaint. And at the end, there is another letter from Bob Gale, I will point out.
Yes.
Okay.
And let people know who Bob Gale is in case they don't know.
Bob Gale, who co-wrote Back to the Future and would later take over as Spider-Man writer many, many years later in the 2000s.
Okay.
Or maybe even 2010s, much later.
Yeah, when they got into hiring screenwriters to write comics, which started to be a real thing for a while there. All right, so Marvel's spaceborne superhero, Captain Marvel, issue number 2, The Spaceman and the Super Skrull. And on the cover, we've got Captain Marvel fighting the Super Skrull, who is in his Human Torch form. This cover might have gotten me to rethink my decision not to collect the series, but I don't think the interior of the book is going to follow through on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is the best issue so far of Captain Marvel, just because I like the, you're going to get to it here, but I like the high stakes of this issue, but it's still not a great book.
Yeah. Yeah. So from the void of space comes the Super Skrull. Stan Lee acclaims and acknowledges another star-spawned saga by Roy Thomas writer and Gene Colan artist. But they could never have done it without the help of Vince Colletta inker and Sam Rosen letterer. And I will say that once again, Vince Colletta does a surprisingly really good job inking this issue.
Yeah.
I wish that this Vince Colletta had shown up on those Submariner issues where the two of them were working together.
Yes, so just shockingly better than the Submariner issues.
Yes. So we start off with the Skrull Emperor seeing that the Kree have sent Mar-Vell to Earth, and he's like, why are they sending somebody as important as Mar-Vell? And we're going to find out in a moment that he was a war hero in a Kree-Skrull war. So they're like, why did they send this war hero to this backwater stupid place called Earth? Like, what is going on? We need to figure this out. And weirdly enough, the Skrull Emperor has a robot dog.
Yeah, I love the robot dog. I assume this is Colan just inventing this. I don't know if Thomas even had any idea these robot dogs were going to be part of this comic, because he has one and then his daughter has one. It's not clear if it's the same one. His daughter seems to be bigger and have sharp metal teeth. So
I assumed they were the same one, but I just got back from a thing. Anyway, it's a thing where I was demonstrating the laser, and there were other people demonstrating various technological stuff. The robotics department at UNC Greensboro was demonstrating one of those little robot dogs like you see in those Boston Dynamics videos. And seeing a robot dog in person, I do not like it.
That's why you need lasers. You need lasers to protect you from the robot dogs.
The robot dogs are going to have lasers. You know they will.
Oh, right. I forgot they'd have lasers too.
That's right. So anyway, the Skrull Emperor decides to recall the Super Skrull from his banishment. He had last been sent to patrol unimportant areas of the galaxy in order to keep him out of the way because he was in disgrace. So he shows back up and he's ready to prove himself. And this is where we find out that Mar-Vell was a war hero in a Kree-Skrull conflict of some sort.
Nice splash page on page 4 showing Mar-Vell as a war hero, which is more competence than he's ever gotten to show in this book.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and we have sort of a spectral head of the Skrull Emperor as he's relating this behind that. And actually, that head in the background looks almost like Tom Palmer inking.
Yeah, I think it's Colletta, but Colletta
no. It is Colletta. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm shocked and amazed to see that it looks almost like Palmer.
Yeah.
Tom Palmer, who of course is the greatest inker Colan was ever going to have, and also one of the greatest inkers that John Buscema is ever going to have.
Yeah.
So the Emperor basically says, go to Earth, find out why the Kree sent Mar-Vell to Earth, and disrupt whatever plans they have. And if you succeed in this, not only will you be released from your banishment, but you can have anything you want short of my office, right? And so the Super Skrull is thinking, it's gonna be your daughter. Which, I wouldn't think the Super Skrull would be an ally, so that kind of tracks. So
yeah, he thinks Super Skrull, by the way, the Super Skrull won't be named for another 20 years or so. He's always just called the Super Skrull, but he's thinking, you need but command, Majesty. Then he thinks, with the king as his daughter, Nell, it is she of whom I have dreamt in the endless night of space. Now, last time we saw Nell, she was a pretty nice person, and now she's got her big racer-toothed robot dog, and it seems less nice than she did before. She seems like she fits in better with the Skrull Empire than it seemed like she did before.
Yes. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel is returning back to his hotel room that he's been living at, or short-term rental, or whatever it is that he's staying at, and takes off his helmet and is immediately like, "Oh, I forgot! I can't breathe without my helmet." So he goes and has to take one of his breathing potions. This is going to get old really fast, I'm sure. So he then is going to look for his little bindle tube thing that he brought with him to Earth, and it is not under his bed. Really secure hiding place he had, just
Yeah.
going ahead and putting it under his bed. So he is getting dressed as his alter ego, and he's going to head out to try and find it, because apparently there's some kind of booby trap on it, and if you mess with it, it's now got a 2-hour timer. I think it was 2 hours until a small yield nuclear weapon is going to go off and get anyone who's in the vicinity. So that's suboptimal.
Hmm.
So he goes out to try and find this. The person who took the thing, the night manager or whoever it was at the hotel, is able to get somebody on the military base to escort him in so that he can try to talk with the commanding officer or whatever, even though the guy on the motorcycle was like, "I don't think you're going to be able to talk to him. You're just some civilian." But he's like, "Yeah, I'll drive you there, sure, whatever." But then that is the point when the Super Skrull shows up, and he's got some sort of tracking device that is homing in on the Kree tube, since he's like, "Oh, okay, here's some Kree technology. This must be where the guy is." So the Super Skrull comes and punches the military policeman off of his motorcycle.
In one
Clearly,
of the weirdest looking pages I've ever seen in Marvel Comics.
yes, Colin does not do a fantastic job with the Mr. Fantastic style arm for the Super Skrull here. It
No,
looks
it's
pretty
weirdly
poor.
bulging. It is very strange. I mean, it looks like a drawing. It doesn't look like anything that could exist in real three-dimensional space.
Yes. I expect more from Colin on that. And you could try to throw Coletta under the bus on that, but it really doesn't look like that was, I mean, yes, granted, Coletta probably should have redrawn one of those two lines to make it not look like that. But this is really on Colin. And
But it's
yeah,
also, it's just a bizarre splash. We're looking at the whole thing at this extremely canted, whatever, a 55-degree angle as the car is coming towards us along the road at the bottom. It's, it's certainly dynamic. We've talked before about how Colin does good work with vehicles. And as the motorcycle comes flying at us, it's nicely rendered and nicely dynamic. But Super Skrull's arm is just so strange.
And it's funny, we had one of Colin's best splash pages a few pages earlier with the War Hero sequence. And now we have one of his more usual, like, well, it's not even that this is an odd choice for a splash page. I think that this is a pretty reasonable choice to make into a splash page. But yeah, you're right. It's just very, very oddly done.
Mm-hmm.
So the Super Skrull goes ahead and pulls this hotel manager out of the car, realizes, like, "You're not Kree. What the heck's going on here?" But he sees he has the cylinder, so he's trying to open that. Meanwhile, Walter Lawson is, I think, his civilian name here, but Captain Marvel takes a taxi to close to the missile base, but then pays the guy and just like, "Leave me here in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of these rugged hills that are right near Cape Canaveral."
Yes.
Once again, this is clearly supposed to be like the JPL or something like that, right? But they keep on referring to this as the Cape. And it's just like,
JPL
why?
standing for Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Right, yes. Or something like that. Something out west. One way or the other, that's a little bit of an unforced error as far as I can see, an own goal, as it were. So anyway, he uses his flying jets to fly out and find the Super Skrull, who has the night manager grabbed by the collar. The Super Skrull then knocks him off of this cliff, and Captain Marvel has to go down and break his fall with his own body. And he's not sure he's still living. They sort of leave that a little bit. It's very unclear what happens to him at the end of this.
Yes.
Colin gave us no clue, and then Roy Thomas doesn't really fill in much extra. The Super Skrull and Captain Marvel have a nice fight. It ends up moving into an area that is populated by soldiers. It continues there. The Super Skrull is running through all the various powers that he's got. we have a little bit of an aside to Carol Danvers worrying about Captain Marvel. I don't know who Captain Marvel really is behind that strange helmet, except he risked his life to save mine against the Sentry. He's got to be all right. And then she interrupts herself. So we see that she is at least interested in him as someone who saved her. We'll have to see if there's any other interest going forward. I'm unsure of whether there is or not. And then meanwhile, we get one last shot up in the Kree spaceship where we see Una with her ever-present tear.
Yes.
You know,
At least, unlike Dorma, it makes a little more sense for Una to be crying because she's not underwater.
Yes, yes. She is seeing Captain Marvel being defeated by the Super Skrull and sees Jan Rog gloating about it. She is thinking, then Jan Rog got his wish to see my loved one dead without lifting a hand. And so she's afraid he might be dead. And we're left with just a cliffhanger of, yeah, there's still this nuclear bomb on a timer waiting to go off, and we'll have to see what happens next issue. Next-ish, 0 Hour.
Yeah, I think that this was a shockingly good issue in some ways. I think that obviously the number one best thing that happens in this issue is we have the Kree and the Skrulls running into each other, which is...
is this the first time we've had that?
Yeah.
I guess you're right. Yes, okay, that's a very good point.
So this will be one of the all-time great Marvel grudge matches, Kree versus Skrull, and we have it starting here. It just makes sense. They're both expansionist empires. Of course, over the course of Marvel Comics, especially if you look at the first couple years of Marvel Comics, we ran into like 30 different expansionist alien empires that were convinced, oh, now we must never return. Now that we've seen how mighty Ant-Man is, let's abandon our plans to invade the Earth. All of those empires are not long forgotten, but the Skrulls turned out to be ones that actually stuck around, and the Kree are going to stick around as well. And so it's only natural that they come into conflict with each other. And I think this is a great development for this book. I really like the element of the nuclear bomb about to go off all throughout. That does exactly what it's supposed to do for a story. It really ups the stakes. And, I was sort of on the edge of my seat as I read this. I'm like, will Captain Marvel defeat the Super Skrull in time and then be able to stop the nuclear bomb from going off? And then he's not. He's defeated by the Super Skrull and the nuclear bomb is still there. And we cut to it ticking away on the last page. It's not actually ticking, but essentially ticking away. I really like the fight. I complained about in the last couple of issues how Cullen, when he had Captain Marvel fighting the Sentry Sinister, there was a little sense of the advantage shifting in the battle. I've got more of a sense of that here. I feel like he's doing in some ways a better job than even Kirby has been doing in terms of showing the mix of Super Skrull's powers. Really nice page on 18 where he's being hammered by the Super Skrull and then suddenly it's like he vanished before my very eyes. And then you have the invisible Super Skrull punching him out again. I feel like, because Sue isn't much of a puncher and because we've only seen the Super Skrull a couple times in Fantastic Four, I feel like we've never really gotten a nice sequence like this of, suddenly turning invisible and punching you, presumably with some thing strength behind him. I just thought it was a really nicely done sequence. I was really shocked at how good this issue was.
You know what? You have talked me into it. I have retroactively enjoyed this issue a little bit better since you have made these points. I think I was colored a little bit by when I was telling you that I hadn't read the issue yet, and you were like, "You're not going to be excited by it." So you had first prepared me to not be a big fan of this issue, but now you've talked me into the other side. What can I say? I'm malleable.
Yes.
So a couple of strange things that I wanted to go back and talk about for just a moment here. When the Super Skrull is talking to the Emperor and his daughter, he says, "You need but command, Majesty," and then thinks to himself, "With the king is his daughter Anel. It is she whom I have dreamt in the endless night of space." And then there's a footnote that says, "Her we do remember. She was introduced in FF number 37, signed Skirt Watcher Stan."
Oh, Stan.
Oh, Stan. That did not age well. But then also, weirdly, on the panel where the Super Skrull turns invisible, he says, as he's turning invisible, "Yes, my beloved Marvel, the word is vanished."
Okay. I thought you were in love with Anel. Okay, now you're in love with Captain Marvel. I guess Marvel and Anel do rhyme.
Yes, that's it. He got mixed up which one was which. Just two minor things I thought that I should mention before we finish up here. Let's go ahead and move on to our last issue of the day, Submariner #2.
Yes, let's go ahead and move on to Prince Namor the Submariner, Cry Triton. We see him fighting the Inhuman Triton on the cover. Absolutely gorgeous cover, clearly by John Buscema, presumably inked by Frank Giacoia. Really beautiful. You know, the idea that he's going to fight Triton, it's like, okay, it makes sense to bring these two characters together. However, you enter this issue and it is so disappointing. When I was warning you, you weren't going to like it, I was really talking about this issue and not Captain Marvel. You told me that, I've read everything except for Captain Marvel #2 and Submariner #2. And I was like, you're not going to be happy. But I wasn't really talking about Captain Marvel #2. I was talking about Submariner #2. Produced with pageantry and pride by Stan Lee, editor, Roy Thomas, writer, John Buscema, artist, imperially inked by Frank Giacoia, lavishly lettered by Artie Simek. We begin continuing the previous storyline. That's good. We have Namor tearing up Destiny's machinery, saying, with these machines, the villain called Destiny charged his accursed helmet of power and defeated me. Thus, they must be irrevocably destroyed. So, okay, Destiny was a good villain. As you pointed out, he didn't have a great look. He didn't have fantastic costume design or, anything iconic about him. But they established he was, the guy who had essentially been wrecking Submariner's life for the last 40 years. And he was a big, important villain, and they've done a good job establishing that, and we're in the middle of fighting him, and that is continuing here on the first page, so that's good. But then suddenly, everything just goes off in a crazy new direction. Submariner suddenly remembers fighting the Fantastic Four a couple times, which this is really the first time we've gotten to see John Buscema draw the Fantastic Four. He will later become the regular artist on Fantastic Four for a while after Kirby is gone. I think Kirby leaves and it's Romita for a couple of issues, and then John Buscema for a couple of years. We get to see that for the first time. He does a great job with them. Then he's like, perhaps the scientific wizardry of Mr. Fantastic can help me locate my hated foe. I must go to them, forget my pride, that I may redeem my honor. So far, this issue's going great. Top panel of page 4. Let's just stop reading the issue here. Let's just close it up. I think we can faithfully say this is going to be a great issue. Wait just a second. Now we get to panel 2 of page 4, and suddenly we see in a nearby submarine is the Plant Man. Now, if you're someone whose whole deal is that you can communicate with plants, I would think the last place you would want to go is inside a submarine, which are not famous for their plant life. But he is, for some reason, in a submarine. He does have some plants growing in there he can sort of control. And the submarine has come up against the Inhumans, who I guess are still sort of living on that island in the Mediterranean that we saw them on before. They're like, we got to stop the Plant Man. Not sure why exactly they feel the need to do that, but they do. They go ahead and attack the Plant Man submarine. This is all very confusing. Submariner just sort of happens to be passing by. Plant Man's being attacked, by all the Inhumans, but specifically by Triton, because that's the underwater guy, and he's in a submarine. And then Plant Man says, "Attention, Prince Namor, you who stand ready to do my bidding. We are being watched by some scale-covered creature only a few fathoms away. Seek him out and annihilate him." And Submariner's going like, a voice beamed at me from within the vessel, seeking to command me? What are you talking about? Well, this whole thing is just to trick Triton into fighting Submariner. Why, Plant Man, do you feel the need to do any of this? Neither of these were a big threat to you. Suddenly, to trick Triton into attacking Submariner by pretending to command the Submariner. What happened to Destiny? What happened to Destiny? He was a good villain. We were in the middle of having a storyline about him. Now suddenly we're dealing with the Inhumans and Triton and the Plant Man. So weird. So then Triton and Submariner fight each other for several pages. Buscema does a great job. The action looks fantastic. Buscema and Joy both doing a great job. Eventually, Submariner figures out he can rip out the tubing on the back of Triton that keeps him alive. We get just a little bit more of Atlantis evacuating their old city, which we've been watching for several issues now. And they have to sort of talk Dorma into it.
Yeah, she wants to wait behind so that if Namor returns, she can be there and let him know what happened. But Vashti and Lord Seth both talk her into saying, look, you are their figurehead at this point. You must lead by example. You must lead with your people. So she, even though it breaks her heart, she must do it.
And as we've seen, returning is the last thing on Namor's mind at this point, so it's just as well they talk her out of it. Finally, Plant Man manages to defeat both Submariner and Triton, gets them sort of to defeat each other, and then he attaches them to a sort of pole, has them captive. We see that the Inhumans are trying to stop Plant Man's submarine from getting away, and they can't. Then we find out, what has Plant Man been up to this whole time? What on earth is his goal? Oh, well, he intends to attack London, England with seaweed. He's got giant sentient seaweed, and he's going to attack London, England with it, because we all know that the Plant Man hates more than anything London, England. And so strange. So strange. Roy Thomas, what are you doing? What are you smoking? I know it's 1968. I know people were starting to dip into the wacky weed a little bit. What on earth is going on? You were in the middle of a Destiny storyline that was going quite well, and now suddenly you've got the Plant Man kidnapping Submariner and Triton for no reason and taking them to go attack London, England. And soon, very soon, I shall send my irresistible, indestructible plants against one of the greatest cities in the world, London, England. Next issue, the Plant Man's secret weapon, the unstoppable Leviathan. And if you think Subby and Triton might just get in on the action, well, who are we to say thee nay, faithful one? Anyway, Steve, what do you think of this issue?
I love the art.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, it's not great other than that. So at one point, Roy Thomas refers in a caption to Plant Man as the viceroy of vegetables, which I kind of almost like that better than Plant Man. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's dumber than Plant Man or less dumb than Plant Man, but one way or the other, it at least has some pizzazz. It has some character. It's like Paste Pot Pete as opposed to the Trapster. I would kind of almost wish that he would start calling himself the viceroy of vegetables. On page 11, panel 3, I just want to point out that that is just a fantastic, powerful panel of Triton punching up at Submariner.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, just absolutely spectacular panel. Page 14, where Dorma is, wanting to stay behind. Once again, it's one of those things where the caption says, but stronger even than the call of Dorma's noble blood is the power of love. And, just once again, I just find gross the entire concept of, because you are descended from such and such a person, that means that you are this kind of person. And, I don't know. I never like it.
You just don't like it because our ancestors were all ne'er-do-wells.
Well, our ancestors were all Irish.
Well, they were all Irish or Confederates. So,
Right. Yes. So, yeah, good point. Maybe that's why. But yeah, Black Bolt, who does show up in here a little bit more than you really mentioned, again, he just has too many and too varied powers. It's just like whatever the story needs, he can do. So he's able to part the sea and turn the water into solid walls for the Inhumans to run across the seabed to find the submarine. And then when the solid walls give way and the water is about to rush in on them, he then says, "Our king hardened the air molecules beneath us and raised us from harm's way." This is just too much.
Yep.
Please, just have a regular power set for him and stick with it. It bugs me. But I'm looking forward to seeing London next issue.
Why?
It's nice to see it drawn.
Yes. Hopefully, Buscema will show us a pretty London.
Yes. Those are all my thoughts. So I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up.
Let me check my notes. I say, then the Plant Man. What happened to Destiny? What a lame villain switcheroo.
Yes.
I say, good to finally see these two fighting, but what a lame way to do it. And then at the end, there is a letter from Rich Howell, who will go on to become a Marvel artist. One of my least favorite Marvel artists, but, that's neither here nor there.
Oh, Richard Howell, like the one who did the 12-issue Scarlet Witch Quicksilver storyline.
Presumably, that's who this is. That sure was a comic, that 12-issue Vision Scarlet Witch storyline that they did. Did you have any final thoughts?
No, I think I've pretty much said everything I need to say, and we can go ahead and sign off. And next week, we will be coming back and finishing off the month of June, 1968.
Yep, sounds like a plan.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We always appreciate any ratings or reviews you can give us on any podcatcher that you use. That always helps people find us, and the more people who find us, the better we feel about continuing to spend our time doing this. So we'd really appreciate that from anybody who hasn't done so far. And thank you to those of you who have been so generous as to sign up for our Patreon. I know we aren't really giving any value for it yet, other than just the satisfaction of knowing that you are helping support us to do this podcast ad-free. Thank you for that as well. So I think that's all from me. Matt, do you have any final things to say before we say goodbye?
But I want to say that I just want to voluntarily talk about how great MailChimp is. So if, we're not getting paid anything by MailChimp, but I'm just saying that you should really sign up for it. Nope, I had nothing more to add. So let's go ahead and wrap up for today. Bye, everybody.
All right, thanks. Take care and stay safe out there.
Just a second. Wait, before you stop.
Okay.
All right, everybody. That's me, Skirt Watcher Matt, and Skirt Watcher Steve both want to say, have a good day. We're going to go back to watching skirts now.
Yes, absolutely. Take care and watch skirts out there.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.